A Canadian man is actually imprisoned, actually sent to prison, for refusing to call his female daughter she after she claimed trans status as a he. Literally, imprisonment by pronoun. What exactly is the bail for crime against pronouns? Anybody? Anybody? I'm Dr. Duke. Alex Newman is here, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Katie is off being maternal, and so Alex Newman is with us here in studio. We're grateful for that. I know you will be too. Today, we start with a concerned father who has been jailed for calling his daughter a girl because, you know, she is a girl when she pretends that she is a boy. And we have a really interesting situation here, it seems to me. We keep hearing from the progressive left nations like Canada that we've got to empty out the prisons. We've got to stop sending people to prison for stupid things like drug trafficking and assault and battery and looting and pillaging in the streets in the name of social justice. Those are things that don't rise to the level of prison. But using the wrong pronoun, Alex, using the wrong pronoun is going to get you in the showers with Guido and Barney and all the other thugs in the first cell block wing, right? How do you justify this?
Dude, this story is so horrifying, and I've been following it now for many months, probably more than a year. And the background on this is that this girl, brainwashed in a government brainwash camp, decided that she was actually a boy. And the court ordered testosterone injections for this girl against her parents' wishes. I believe she was 13 or 14 at the time. Now, keep in mind, when you start injecting testosterone into a little girl, their body will be permanently destroyed. They will be sterilized. They'll start growing facial hair. Their voice will deepen. And a lot of these things are irreversible. You can't go back and undo these. And the dad has been now jailed. There he is. Merely for speaking the truth, for saying a fact. And also in Canada, Pastor James Coates was arrested for keeping his church open during the lockdowns. And you just hit on such an important point. They're letting out the real criminals so they can imprison the Christians and the people who still can see reality and will not lie.
Yeah, please listen to what Alex and I just both said. They are emptying out the prisons of arsonists, looters, pillagers, burning down, people who burn down police stations. They're emptying the prisons of high-level drug traffickers.
Child rapists.
They're getting these people out of the way, out of the system, so they could put people who abuse pronouns. Robert Hoogland, we showed you his picture. He's from Surrey, British Columbia. He has a 14-year-old daughter now. In February of 2019, the Supreme Court of British Columbia, Canada, ordered that the girl receive testosterone injections without obtaining parental consent, without having to get the parents' permission, although the parents do have to pay for it, right? Quote, the court also declared that if either of her parents referred to her using female pronouns or addressed her by her birth name, they would be considered guilty of family violence. Only in a Trudeau pajama boy country like Canada would you have something like family bias legislation. So it may not rise to criminal behavior at the state level. It may not rise to a federal felony offense, but we've created a whole category now of family violence, right? So you spank your kid, or you ground your kid from prom when all the other kids go, or heaven forbid, you call your kid by her given name on her birth certificate because she wants to be called something else. And you don't get a warning, you don't get a ticket, you get sent to prison.
Yeah, and it's scary and absurd at the same time. And, you know, if you take this to its logical conclusion, you realize how absurd this is. Suppose my daughter believes, the Babylon Bee satirized this perfectly. Suppose my daughter believes she is a mermaid. Would the state be okay with me taking her to a medical professional to have her legs surgically amputated so that she can be her true self and have a fishtail installed? It's absurd, but it's just as absurd as mutilating a little child's body under the guise of turning them into a sex that they are not.
Alex, that is just over the pale. That is sensationalist. You should know better. Everybody knows you take a little girl who wants to be a mermaid to an aquarium, not to a doctor. I mean, what's the matter with you? It's so embarrassing. When she was in 7th grade, the girls' school urged the girl to see a psychologist. There's your first problem, right? State-sponsored Canadian psychologist. What do you think the determination is going to be every single time a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old says, maybe I'm not who I think I am? What do you think the response is going to be? This was Dr. Wallace Wong, who apparently isn't into Wongs because this is all about changing, right? The anatomy of these kids. This is Dr. Wong, Dr. Wong.
That's the new witch doctor.
This is it. Who recommended the girl should begin taking cross-sex hormones at age 13. Dad said no, and right away the doctors at BC Children's Hospital declared the girl gets the shots no matter what Dad says. One psychologist, not a second opinion, not a committee of people, not a committee that includes parents and other people. Just one psychologist says, this is what I've decided, and so we're going to give the girl a Wong.
Yeah, in all seriousness, this is child abuse. The American College of Pediatricians has come out, and God bless them, they've said clearly, trying to convince, or worse, mutilate a child that they can be the opposite sex and trying to tell them that that's normal or healthy is child abuse, and it is. But I think, Duke, what people need to understand is that this is not going to stay just in Canada. This is happening across the Western world.
It's here already in America.
That's right. We talked about that one in Minnesota. There was the boy who thought he was a girl. His parents said, absolutely not. You're not going to go, mutilate your body. The government school took him to a quote-unquote medical facility. And I will not call these people doctors. These are quacks. These are abusers. These are criminals. And they surgically removed the boy's genitals and constructed a fake female organ for him, and behind the parents' back and against their wishes. And it ended up in federal court. But guess what? The damage is irreversible. It's done. And the UN is now pushing this at a global level. It boggles the mind.
It does boggle the mind, and there's no good outcome for this. There is none. Last quick question for you: the National Organization of Women that now came out about a week ago with a big tweet supporting transgender athletes. Right? We at Now, a women's organization. Look at us. We're all women. We're biological women, and we support letting women who become boys who become girls, men who become women, to go ahead and play sports with the rest of us. How would you respond to that? Because they list a whole. They said science. All the science is behind us. What do you do about the American Pediatric Society? Is it taken seriously, or do people just ignore it?
The American College of Pediatricians, unfortunately, has been ignored
because
they are speaking the truth. And increasingly, the truth is shunned and censored and disrespected and ignored and demonized, but it is still the truth.
Yep. In 2021, there is a father in prison now because he simply referred to his daughter by her given name and refused to call her a boy when she wasn't. Let that sink in.
Boy, has the madness gotten out of control. And if you're a taxpayer, hang on to your wallet. A public government indoctrination center in Columbus, Ohio, in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, has squandered $134,000 in legal fees to get a permit so they could build a transgender-friendly bathroom in 6 of their facilities, despite state code saying that they shouldn't be able to do that. Let that sink in, folks. That's why your taxes are going up every year. That's why it costs more and more to indoctrinate these students because, hey, we've got to have transgender bathrooms. Pretty amazing, Duke.
Yeah, it is amazing. And this was done without telling the public. So typical public school, right? They always need more money. So they managed to, use the power of the unions to press people to vote for a referendum to bring all sorts of new taxpayer money on top of what was already being paid into the school district. And then they turned around and they didn't tell anybody that they were going to create these bathrooms. A public school district in the suburbs of Columbus, $134,000 in legal fees to obtain a permit to install only gender-neutral bathrooms in 6 of its new facilities in violation of state code. In the fall of 2017, the Upper Arlington School District successfully passed a $230 million tax to rebuild 5 elementary schools and Upper Arlington High School. Construction on the high school and 4 of the elementary schools began in 2019, and $230 million, $134,000 just on legal fees. Didn't tell the parents, didn't tell the moms and dads that they were using this money that they so desperately needed to build all these extra bathrooms for all of these extra genders.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And to Ohio's credit, their state building code says that any public facility with plumbing fixtures, you need to have separate bathrooms for men and women. But for the public schools, which are ever so woke, the law doesn't apply to them, even if they have to spend $134,000 of your dollars to get exemptions from the law that all the rest of us have to follow. It's simply incredible. And imagine that. I mean, that's probably the property taxes of, 20, 30, 40 households squandered, flushed down the gender-neutral toilet so that the one transgender kid doesn't have to feel bad going into the bathroom of his biological sex.
Yeah, I mean, the degree to which we are swallowing camels and choking on gnats here to make equity the norm in America, it really tells you this isn't about equity. It's about upturning the social order. It's about erasing things like gender and sex. It's about a complete, if I may use the word, reset about everything we think we know about the universe. The school district, by the way, denies that it hid the decision-making process from the public, making the process public to the public. So we have Kathy Pultz, who runs the parent coalition that is fighting this, and it has served on the parent-teacher organization for 15 years. The school district never informed the parent, she said, about the gender-neutral bathroom facilities until the fall of 2020. The school denies this. Pultz said that she spoke with a superintendent who said the board voted in favor of an architectural design that had gender-neutral bathrooms. Public permit records of the proposed building design submitted to the state show multiple bathrooms designed as men and women. So behind the scenes, they ignore what the code is. They spend all that money to get an exemption from the code. They then build their little gender-neutral bathrooms all over the place, and when parents rightly complain that it's illegal to do so, that you're using our money then to make it legal to do so, and you'll even tell us what you're doing it, and you defend the lie. This is how your school administrators function in 2021. They will lie to you, they will cheat you, they will not talk to you. They don't care what you think. Your public schools that are funded by your taxpayer dollars will do what they say they're going to do with them, not what you say. And if you heaven help you if you protest it, because they're not going to pay the least bit attention to you. We have a system now, and I've said this 1,000 times, where the public school system isn't public. If it were public, you would get your say, the law would be followed. They're your kids after all, it's your money. These are government schools. They're taking your money and telling you what you will and won't think.
One of the things that I hear so often from parents in conservative states is, "Oh yeah, I know that craziness happens in California and Illinois and maybe New York and New Jersey, but hey, I live in Nebraska. We're super conservative here. I know the principal, and Aunt Sally teaches there. There's nothing wrong with the schools in Nebraska." Well, it turns out that Nebraska's new health standards, notice they always bury the craziness in the health standards, is going to start teaching kindergartners about gender identity and gender fluidity and sexual orientation, because after all, as the UN LGBT czar pointed out, you gotta get them young, right? Otherwise they might grow up with those bigoted, hateful notions that God actually created us male and female.
They might actually think that their body tells them what they are. Unless you get their little minds before the skull fuses together, when they're young enough, when their little skulls are soft, they might actually grow up, Alex, to think that boys and boys are girls are girls.
That's right. And as you read through these standards, it makes you want to hurl. I mean, this is, again, they're teaching 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old children. They're going to teach them about homosexuals living together. They're going to teach them about different kinds of family structures. And again, these are little tiny kids that are being exposed to this. They're going to teach them about same-sex couples and the different things they do, gender stereotypes, transgenderism. It's horrifying.
Do you remember when we were fighting Common Core all those years ago, we talked about the national sexuality standards?
Yes, indeed.
That language that they're citing here in Nebraska is word for word from this document. And watch how all of these schools now, even in places like Nebraska, hey, Johnny, how's it going? We're doing well in Elmo, Nebraska. We got our kids in good schools, right? Okay. Under the framework, first grade students would be taught the definition of gender, gender identity,
The lunatic's definition of gender.
and gender role stereotypes, right? So literally I use that word with exactly knowing what I mean. Literally, it is now a stereotype to believe that men are men and women are women. That's a stereotype. To believe that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and it's not more problematic than that, that's a stereotype, which means it's bigotry, which means it must be completely eradicated, that worldview.
Yep, and I think the implications of this are important to understand because it's it's so outrageous, it's so disgusting, it's almost laughable. But on the way up here, Duke, I finished reading a book by Kimberly Ells, and really good book. It's called The Invincible Family, and she connected some dots for me that, in a way that I hadn't thought about it yet. First she talked about how the homosexuals made the argument that once they started, going after kids. First it was just, we just don't want to be discriminated against. We just don't want you to hate us, et cetera, et cetera. Then it was, now we want children. Give us children. Right? We want to adopt children. We want to have surrogate moms. And the argument was, well, children don't really need a mom and a dad, right? I mean, yeah, maybe it's nice, but hey, they could do fine with just two dads or just two moms, whatever it is, or now three. But now transgenderism takes it another step further and dissolves even the idea of a mom and dad. So the family is a mom and a dad and children. The homosexuals said, well, we don't really need a mom and a dad. We can have just two dads. Now they're saying there is no such thing as a mom and a dad. That's a gender stereotype. You could be anything you want, and family is whatever we say it is, which means it is nothing. And when you realize that family is the most fundamental unit of society, it's where children learn love. It's where children receive their safety and their everything that they need. When you realize that is in the crosshairs, just like Karl Marx suggested it should be back in the late 1840s, you realize we are headed toward hell on earth if these people get their way.
Well, and keep in mind that this dissolving of man and woman, mom and dad, is already federal, right?
That's right.
One of the things Joe Biden did when he took office, something that Barack Obama was doing already, got rid of the words mother and father from all federal documents. Mom and dad are not actually things anymore, according to the United States of America at the federal level. So this isn't just, Nebraska, some flatlander state in the middle of nowhere. This is already federal policy. And with these new sex standards in Nebraska, which are also all we're telling you now is even Nebraska has them. We all thought we've done the stories. We told you 4 years ago when Massachusetts did it, 5 years ago when California did it, right? 3 years ago when New York and New Jersey did it. Our point now, I guess, is now it's in Nebraska. And if it's in Nebraska, that means it is everywhere. According to this framework, according to the new framework, the LGBTQ activism ideology becomes the most prevalent in the 6th grade. 11-year-olds are taught the specific difference between cisgender, transgender, gender non-binary, gender expansive, gender identity. 6th graders are also asked to, quote, define sexual identity and explain a range of identities related to sexual orientation. That comes directly, word, syllabus by syllabus, from those national sexuality standards that we talked about linked to Common Core. Yeah. So if you want to sit there and look at me and tell me that Common Core doesn't exist anymore, you want to tell me, like you told me 10 years ago, that this stuff would never come to Nebraska, it'd never come to Wisconsin, it's never going to come to Oklahoma. It's there. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's right. And as you keep going through these standards, the kids are going to learn about queer and two-spirit and asexual and pansexual. I don't even know what pansexual is supposed to mean.
Quick anecdote. When I was teaching in Philadelphia, I had a kid, for the very first day of class, hadn't even passed out the syllabus yet. Walked in. Right away, this kid puts his hand up. I'll never forget it. His name was Nathan. And I said, I knew him from a previous class. I said, Nathan, you got a question? Well, not a question, sir. I'd like to make an announcement to the class. And I said, okay. He says, he stood up. I'd like to formally announce to my peers that I am a pansexual. And at the time, I didn't really know what I knew what the word Greek pan meant. It meant all sexual. And so I said, so pansexual, I could not do this today. I mean, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, glad to not be a goldfish at your house.
Oh, my goodness.
The kids laughed. Nathan laughed, to his credit. That was
That's worse than a
That's
microaggression, Duke.
15 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine, I'm not even sure I should be able to, maybe I can't even tell the story now, but it was all in good fun. But that's where we are with pansexuality. This is a horrible story.
And it's going global. You know, I've written very extensively on UNESCO is pushing these things, the UN Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Now, to their credit, the Communist Chinese and the Russians are not allowing their children to be indoctrinated with this absolute idiocy. But across the entire Western world, now the Biden regime is trying to push this on African nations. In fact, they're even threatening them with financial sanctions if they won't legalize sodomy and accept same-sex marriage, so-called. It's getting really brutal, and they are determined to force this down everybody's throat.
And understand this, Mom and Dad. One of the major planks of globalism is controlling sexuality and gender. That's what they're doing under the guise of equity of genders. All you idiots out there with the little yellow bumper stickers, the blue bumper stickers with a little equal sign, who want to keep arguing love is always the same thing. It's not. And you can see here how you got a guy in jail for mispronouncing his daughter. Meanwhile, you're forcing little kids to do this. That little yellow equal sign that you think means equity, I don't think you know what you're talking about. And I think the globalists have you in their back pocket. Maybe that's what you want, but that's what's coming. And they're using sex and gender as a major tool to make it happen. As you know, we created Instant Classics as a way of trying to blunt some of the nastiness of today's education news, right? It's one really disgusting story after another. I can't tell you how many stories there are that every day, we could do this for 6 hours every day, 5-7 days a week, and we would not exhaust the insanity. So we came up with Instant Classic as a way of ending the show by presenting you art and culture and ideas from the past before education became swallowed up by all of this Marxist ideology. And so today, in fact, all week, we're going to do St. Augustine Week on the Dr. Duke Show. St. Augustine, of course, was the great father of the church, one of the first great Christian intellectuals, one of the earliest of the great theologians of the church. He was a pagan before this, before he became a Christian, spent most of his adult life as a pagan Roman professor of classical literature. And when he found Christianity, he found a reason to live. He rejected the pagan view of life, became a devout Christian, and wrote wonderful things. So all week long, we're going to read you quotes from St. Augustine. Look at the kind of things that 1,500, 1,700 years ago were being said about reality, and tell me who's changed. Are these lunatics who are making up genders, are they closer to the truth of reality, or was St. Augustine closer to the truth 1,600 years ago? Here's our first quote. Interrogating himself in his confessions, trying to get at what he was before he found God, and then the Christianity that took over his life. Augustine says, "What art thou then, my God? What but the Lord God? For who is Lord but the Lord? Or who is God save our God? Most highest, most good, most potent, most omnipotent, most merciful, and yet most just, most hidden, yet most present, most beautiful, yet most strong, stable, yet incomprehensible, unchangeable, yet all changing, never new, never old, all renewing, and bringing age upon the proud, and they know it not. Ever working, ever at rest, still gathering, yet nothing lacking, supporting, filling, and overspreading, creating, nourishing, and maturing, seeking, yet having all things. This is a man in love. This is a man who is completely smitten. This is a man whose whole life has changed because he found the one true God among the many pagan gods of this earth." All right, just a quick reminder to please download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store, absolutely free, and make sure to allow us, once you download the app, to send you notifications. And if you're a fan of the show, we ask you to please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support our Patriot Club, and we'll send you our signature tumbler. Visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Before we go, as we always do, we like to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we'd like to give a shout out from Tricia from Lilburn, Georgia. Thanks for supporting us, and we got a lot of Georgia supporters. You stay strong in a state that has so many, sadly, idiots in it. We appreciate you. And that's our show for Freedom Project. I'm Dr. Duke. He's Alex. Until next time, Stay educated, my Georgia peaches.